The next topic that our speakers are going to be deliberating their thoughts on is about top problems in modern retail in India that are crying for a solution in technology, or I should say affordable technology. At a high level, all retailers today are looking for the best way for omni-channel solutions. But what does that actually mean to the CIO or COO? Does it mean that they are looking for very specific ways to enhance customer experience in the store? Or are there any other here-in-house issues?
All right, a very warm welcome to everybody in this room, especially on this day, on such a day. And a genuine thanks to everybody who's made it thus far with all the rains in Mumbai. I am Vanita from Honeywell. And today we are going to talk specifically about technology for not only retail sector as a whole, but we really want to drill down to talk about specific initiatives or specific interventions in technology, and not just information technology, but technology interventions that can make a difference to business outcomes for retailers. Now, like we were discussing earlier, we really don't want to talk about big words like omni-channel and customer engagement. We've heard those words to death. But what we really want to talk about is practical roadmaps, experiences in the past, or immediate roadmaps for the next 2 to 3 years. So like I said, we're going to divide this panel discussion into 3 broad sections. In the first section, we'll talk about a couple of issues that are being faced by some of our retailers that may be common to all of us. We will also then talk about some of the solutions that some of us are implementing and what are the kind of practical problems that turn up while implementing those solutions. And finally, we'd like to end on a high. We would like to talk about visionary solutions or technologies that would be on the wish list of our CIOs, eminent CIOs out here. So that's where we'll begin. So let's begin with talking about some of the issues that retailers are facing. Now, one of the things that I think was discussed in the earlier panel and which came up in my one-on-one discussions with you, and Benazir is not here with us today for some reason, but one of the things, for instance, she spoke about was supporting, the worry about the scalability of startups, right? Even if they want to invest in a technology which has been developed by a startup, it is something that they really need. But being a large organization, they're always concerned about, how these startups are going to scale over the needs for a large retailer. Can Honeywell help them grow? Can, Shopper Stop, she was talking about Shopper Stop, help them grow, and so on and so forth. There were also a couple of other interesting observations. Yaqeen, I would request you to talk about, a couple of such top business imperatives that drive technology.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I think as of today, for all of us in retail and the traditional brick and mortar retail that we are, I think when the business is asking for customer-facing solutions or a single view of the customers, what they are asking for is to prepare the business so that going forward we are able to give that to our customers as a service and experience. What we feel today is that we have to actually relook at the way technology platforms have been structured and what we have been using. And if I just give a small definition as in terms of who is our competition as far as the retail business is concerned today, then I would say that it's the online retailers that we are currently facing the challenges with. And it's not the online retailers who are the actual competition, but it's the technology which they have adopted to when they started, which is the actual challenge that we have vis-a-vis the legacy technology that we have been working for years and years together. So going forward tomorrow, what we need to be focusing on is how do we prepare the business for the next 5 years with technology as a challenge which is coming from the newer technology adopted by technology companies doing retail. So the online retailers basically are technology companies doing retail, and we as retailers have been doing retail with only having systems over a period of years which are supporting the businesses. And that's the call that we have to take, and how do we address that going forward. And that's the wish list that I have in how do we move the retail organizations forward to give that customer experience.
Very beautifully said. So we're really talking about competition from technology-first companies who happen to be in retail versus us brick-and-mortar retailers trying to adopt technology for business outcomes. Very well said. Pooja, as a category manager, I would like to invite your opinion about what do you think are the key business outcomes.
So hello. Yeah, so we would imagine that, the inventory is talking to each other, online and offline. And if we have to seamlessly, give that experience to the customer there where he can buy from anywhere, we'll have to get the inventory to talk to each other. We have so many systems, and as he rightly pointed out, that we're building systems over systems. So, the information flow is a little jarred. And I think that that's one thing which we need to really get going in a seamless manner, so that we can have the sales happening, and also the fulfillment. So if the order is coming and we take the order, so one system might say that the inventory is there, but the other system might reject it. So that is a customer dissatisfaction at the top.
Right.
That's where I think there's a lot of gap which we can take care of.
Thank you, Pooja. Thanks for that perspective. I'd now like to invite you, Abel, for your point of view, especially from a governance point of view, in terms of what are the key, business imperatives that would drive technology adoption.
Morning, everyone. I think the first challenge that I find with us competing, which is the brick and mortar versus the online channel, is the recognition of the customer, the profiling of the customer. And I think Yakin and Pooja has put it rightly that we have a disjointed architecture. We have a disjointed systems available. Means brick and mortar has been there for 20 years. Online guys have been there for last 10 years. The technology that they got as a starting point versus the technology that brick and mortar guys got as a starting point, I think it's a big gap there. And the other challenge I feel, organizations recognize that there's e-commerce as a challenge, but where are the provisions or the budgets available to actually compete with them given the investments that may be required in IT? Just having a computer on the desk is not going to make it work. You need to have a whole ecosystem which allows you to recognize your customer, understand the need, and make sure that the fulfillment happens. There are many times where I find the inventory statements are wrong, and it is bound to happen with so many thousands of SKUs in a business environment. You're bound to go wrong. But then the fact is that can technology help me where I make sure the inventory is actually correct and real-time information? That's one big thing which the new world is going to challenge all of us. And unless the budgets are there, it's not going to work. And we always find, and I'm not saying that's a representation of the brick and mortar status of IT department, but to get a recognition that we need to refresh our hardware is actually a big challenge. Then comes the software. Now, the guys at the office would say, why don't you run this new latest software on the oldest possible hardware? It will work, but it will not work at the level that it is supposed to work. So the provisioning for budgets, the provisioning for IT, if you really want to face the challenge, I think the necessary provisioning has to be in place, the necessary accounting methods have to be in place, where there is a feasibility of replacing your hardware every 5 years. And what we are investing now may be irrelevant in another 5 years. So if we don't start providing for it now, I don't think we're going to catch up the game any which ways. So we'll always have a lag game. And if you have to compete with e-commerce, and fair enough, it's not like competition, I'm saying there's enough for all of us to consume. What is needed today is, can I recognize my customer? What is the intent? And the moment there is an intent on one hand, can I publish my SKU that matches his intent? And that all has to be done in real time. If we can do that, I think there's enough opportunity for all of us.
Thank you, Abel. Piyush, you have a point of view about how an organization can come together to solve these issues of investment versus outcomes?
Sure, thank you. Morning, everyone. Let me begin with a background to this whole thing, because I think so it's important that we deep dive and have more context to the technology in retail, and especially brick and mortar retail. The first and foremost thing is, now retail has two wings. Say 20 years back, it was one, brick and mortar. But today, everyone recognizes it as brick and mortar and an electronic form of retail, which is equally growing and growing very fast. What has eventually happened in this whole process is, they have been very innovative. they have been really technology driven. Brick and mortar, because they had something, they are still relying on that. They have not evolved and innovated as much or even a percentage of what online business has. Look at it from a different perspective. What it means is customers have transformed, they have evolved, while brick and mortar still remains broadly in the same format that we were 10, 15 years back. What I'm bringing to table is technology is the key to success, but are we realizing where we are missing the bus? And I personally feel that this is what is required, and that's why I want to bring this different viewpoint here, that buying softwares may not be solution. It's about thinking business. And the point I'm trying to make is, are CIOs really involved in business and strategic decision making of organizations? Industries which are different than retail have transformed big time. You see now business being run by Chief Strategy Officer, CMO, and CIO as a closed group, as a very well-knitted group, a strong bonded group. I don't want to be very harsh, but the fact is, a lot of organizations, CIOs are taken as someone to delegate the task of procurement of softwares and solutions. That's where we are making a big mistake. It's about that CIOs have to be involved in strategic decision making. That's the key to success. And as customers are transforming, I'll give you some examples. Customers today are so interactive. They don't want a passive environment. They really want to talk to the business and the shopping environment they are into. They want to sort things. Online system has created that big chain that people want to sort things. They are networked. So whatever social media we may talk, they are networked, they talk to each other and then take a business decision making, any buying decision making. We are not aligned to all these things when I talk of brick and mortar retail. And I think so this is what I want to bring to table, that it's a high time that everyone starts thinking towards it. CIOs need to be in the forum of strategic decision making of organizations.
Thank you so much, Piyush. Thanks for that point of view. So I'm just going to summarize this quickly in terms of what we just discussed. So the top issues that we are looking at solving is being technology first, just to compete with our competitors in the e-commerce world. We are looking at someone to integrate the various pieces, not just put a band-aid over our legacy systems, right? To really relook at what is required and involve CIOs at the time when such decisions are being making, rather than relegating them to be, like Piyush mentioned, procurement of IT software or hardware, and doing these decisions, like you mentioned, far in advance, in line with business strategy, rather than as a secondary decision, and taking that investment call to ensure that the entire ecosystem works together, the software and the hardware, and basically all the systems that come together for those business outcomes. Now, as the next next segment of our discussion, I want to really bring out some examples of well-done examples from the industry, from our experience at this table, in terms of technology choices or technology implementations. Of course, Kunal, you're the star of the evening. I'll come to you later. But let's start with Sarvana. Sarvana, can you please talk to us a little bit about choices that SPAR has made in terms of technology and how you expect it to help you?
Good afternoon, everybody. To ease the customer experience, what we have done is that now everyone talks about brick and mortar, everyone talks about omni-channel. So there are a set of customers where they're not able to reach, or their reach is very low. So that for that, the major thing is that the traffic and all other hurdles. So what we have done the same set of brick and mortar or omni-channel, we have made a thin layer and we have gotten to a kiosk model, and we have started implementing this kiosk model across in the societies and SEZ zones, and this works in offline. It doesn't require 24-bar connectivity. It requires a connectivity once in a while. This is the ease which we have catered to the consumers and the customers, one who part and parcel of SPA team. So this has worked out very well. So this is one of the implementation what we have done. The second implementation what we have done is that we being in 13 verticals, one of the vertical is women living. So now most of the customers are near to color blindness. So they wanted to set up their room. So when they wanted to set up a room, how they have to imagine how my room looks and what do we do that. For that we have set up a 3D showroom which gives you end-to-end solution. You can visualize, you can look at the products. It is a new innovation what we have brought into the table and people have accepted, and through that the throughput is very high, customer satisfaction is very high. This is the new innovations which is catering to the customers as of now in today's world.
Sadhana,
Yeah, thank you.
thanks. I appreciate that. And Kunal, would you like to share some of the technology implementations for which you took away all those awards last evening?
So firstly, I think we should have more CXOs like you in this room to hear your perspective. But I, kind of taking it forward from where, Abel left the entire conversation was around, the legacy organizations in terms of where they are in technology. Number one is, we already have made a lot of investments, right? So you can't throw all of that. You also need to realize as an organization that, all these systems have been made in line with the existing processes and the ways of working that the business already has, right? When a lot of organizations say, oh, the other guys are doing this, why can't we move in? You also need to realize that you also need to be that quick in changing your business processes, which is not happening. You expect miracles out of IT. The question is, how capable are you of moving your business processes and moving on in life, which is not something that the startups have an issue with, because they'll work on something. If it doesn't work, they learn from that and they move on faster. That doesn't happen on the other side of the table, right? So that's one thing. But what we've started doing is, when you start working on newer technologies, I think that's where I think most of us have started looking at the newer ways of functioning. So a lot of things that we started doing last year started moving a lot of technology on the cloud. Be it the loyalty program, be it some of the mobility initiatives that we've been taking at Raymond, etc., where it's much more easier then to make changes over a period of time and then connect that to your backend, because then you've just got APIs to work around and try and make those changes around it. But if someone tells me, let's go and make a change in SAP, then I'm going to say, hey guys, take a break. It's not going to be that simple. It's not that you don't want to do it. It's just that, are you ready as a business also to make those 10 changes cross-functionally in your departments to kind of take the entire technology thing forward? So yes, we look at a lot of new technology. We're looking at changing a lot of things internally, but for things that for which you don't have anything to start off with. If you have a legacy, it's difficult to change. But if you want to take a new initiative within the business itself, let's look at newer technologies. Let's look at different investments within that, which has a much more far and a reachable perspective in the future, and then move on with that.
Thank you, Kunal. Thanks for that. Shirish, when we were talking yesterday, you had a very interesting perspective from your food retail background and what the retail industry could learn from your previous experiences. Can you please share that with this panel?
Yeah, basically what I was discussing with her is in a retail industry, we are definitely not as focused as what food industry or hotel industry is onto the customer. They understand the life cycle, complete lifespan value of the customer in hotel industry, and similarly into the restaurant industry as such. Whereas in retail, though we try about having a customer engagement to a more customer engagement into our industry. But still, we are not able to match those two industries, I mean, complete hospitality industry as such. So in that connection, the customer engagement, though we are not supposed to talk on that in this session, but that is very important to understand the behavior. But yesterday some lady has mentioned, don't take out my leverage of shopping something new. Don't tell me what I should do. So at the same time, in bringing into the technology, we don't want to take away the fun of shopping. So fun of shopping should not get missed. And that's really important, because probably if you are going to shop some footwear, probably you may go to my Charles and Keith outlet. With your pattern, I may suggest you 10 different products, but then something is new, probably I'm doing an injustice to that particular new product and I'm not offering you that. So we need to have a technology with the customer engagement. But yes, if I tell you something, okay, I mean, this is the new product which I am bringing into my outlet, why don't you try this, though it is not in your pattern. So somewhere in hotel industry, they maintain a lot many things on a history and they try to act. The similar kind of a customer engagement we need to bring in into the retail industry. So I remember some time back, the mentor of retail industry in India, Mr. Nagesh, was mentioning that the loyalty of a customer has no meaning now. We need to be loyal to the customer. The brand has to be loyal to the customer, and that is how we can really grow the business. So many things, like specifically on the customer engagement, we definitely need to learn from hospitality industry.
Thank you for that perspective, Shirish. So what we take away from this segment is that there are opportunities for us to look at technologies, to look at ways in which to adopt technology. Kunal, like you mentioned, how agility, for instance, the cloud, taking your various attachments, like you were mentioning, Yakin, taking them to the cloud, could probably take away the pain of change across departments. It could help in achieving the seamlessness that you want to achieve between those different modules that a retail organization is running. And possibly, like Shirish said, we could learn from the hotel industry or from other industries which have, are more mature in terms of how they engage with the customer. Whereas in retail, we're just about starting to talk about customer journeys and customer engagement. So thank you for that. And now we come to the most exciting part of this panel, which is, your wish list, which is what, if you want to talk about, I'm going to, invite each one of you now to really talk about what you're doing right now in terms of technology implementation in your organization, what you have planned in the next 2 to 3 years. And please feel free to share your wish list, the top 1 or 2 things that, had there been no restrictions, you would really want to do that in the next 2 years for your organization. I would probably want to start with you, Astha, and tell us about the technology implementation that you are currently undertaking.
So hi everyone. I broadly agree with the panels here, saying where we believe that building in the right platform is the starting point for a successful omni-channel journey. It's a journey that we want to be on for maybe a longer framework, for a longer time period. Keeping that in mind, another aspect that I would like to bring on the table is that it's equally important for retailers who have a legacy of system to not step down and keep at pace with the change in the customer need and in the way retail is growing as a sector, right? So how can we go ahead with adopting frugality as a stepping stone for us to test solutions that we have in mind with our customers, learn from the voice of customer, and then scale? So keeping that perspective in mind, what we are trying to address currently is the missing gaps that the customers currently face in their shopping experience. We are dealing with connected customers in today's time. The customer is available in every channel and they have the due right to shop where they wish to shop. So with that scenario in picture, how can we leverage technology to serve them, learn from the experiences that work, and then scale further.
Thank you. Can you also talk a little bit about the choice that you made for your organization between developing something in-house versus, procuring something that was already available in the market?
Yeah, like I previously said, there are certain systems that we are currently working on. We are in the process of enhancing them to the next level so that we can offer our customers a 360 degrees connected experience. So that could be some API integrations happening at a level where we get a clearer picture of inventory and get it real time. So while we are embarked on that journey, we are getting to know it much better. So I myself would like to know from the subject matter experts on this table on how do we get to that point where we have real-time view of inventory and real-time view of the customer shopping with us so that viable solutions can be provided to them.
Yakin, do you have a point of view on that?
A lot, many. Okay, so let me just go all out in what my expectations would be, Let me just say, from the business perspective, there are a lot of many brands who have failed in the past, okay? So business says, fine, it failed, it didn't work out. There are marketing campaigns which fail, okay, it's gone, fail. But, IT is not expected and allowed to be failed at some times. Decisions can go wrong, right? But IT is not allowed to fail because we have paid money. But guys, you paid the same money for making a brand which failed. You paid the same money for marketing campaigns which did not give you the right results. But unfortunately, we are stuck with the saying, you will lose your job if it doesn't work. All right, so that's where it is, okay? Businesses do not want to accept the fact that technology is the fastest depreciated asset today. It is the fastest depreciated asset. There is no two ways about it, okay? Previously, we used to say it 5 years, 7 years, ERPs run for 10 years. That's gone, okay? Today, if I'm going to be sitting out over here, my ERP probably may run for 3 or 4 years before a new set of technology come in, because that's how much development is happening. And the business has to also accept that, okay, yes, IT and the technology framework and the architecture have now become hygiene, and it is a costly hygiene at times in today's time. It's not so cheap, okay? You want agility, then you have to be prepared for that much amount of cost for agility. Now, that is something which the business have to start accepting them as an investment into the IT, and it'll also, some of them will pass, some of them will fail, and that's about it. You can't change anything beyond it. Unfortunately, that is not the environment that we get. We go and say, okay, let me give the example which Abel says, you throw a new software to an old hardware, it really doesn't work. Let me just give another analogy for that. You have infrastructure, you have bridges which have been made, right? Beyond a point, trying to repair that bridge is going to be so far more costly than actually building a new one. It's about time that you start thinking about building a new one rather than putting in more money on the old one. You will never get extra load bearing from the old one any which ways. That was built with a capacity to take X amount of load. You keep on repairing it, doesn't really matter. And we are stuck, so we are stuck. Now, somewhere we need that freedom to move on. We can do far more better. We can understand customers' expectations also better. We can build that framework. Unfortunately, what we don't get is, okay, time and money which is required to give you a new architecture, and the businesses should accept the fact that some of them can be failures on some selection of technology, and some will really do fantastically well for you. Another analogy that I have is, when we typically, we culturally are made like that. I'm not doubting it, and I would just like to continue that, from a vision point of view, we want India to be a cashless economy. Fantastic vision, fantastic, no problems about it. But we try to do it without infrastructure. You just ordering banks to start deploying 3 lakh, 5 lakhs EDC machines across the country to make it cashless is not the solution you will ever get, because you just don't have the technology network, you don't have the networks or bandwidths to be able to actually take this whole country at that speed of achievement. So without infrastructure, you can't achieve your omni-channel views, your single inventory, your single promotions. etc., etc. Other things from the business point of view, one more last, I will just end this with the last point with the business point of view. Let me just take the example that when we visit foreign countries, we adapt to everything. We will not litter, we will follow the traffic rules, we'll be a completely changed human being when we go out over there, okay? I love India, I am for the culture that we live in, perfectly fine. But the example that I'm trying to draw is, when we come back here, we want to adapt and adopt everything, okay? So is the business. There is a system available, okay? You will have to change to make the best use of that system, but no, we would like to change the system so that we can make the way we think is the best used. Really doesn't help much, okay? None of us go on about changing the iOS operating system. We don't go and change so many other softwares which we are just using it as it is. But when it comes to the technology that we deploy in the businesses, no, I want this particular thing not looking out over here, but I want looking it out over here. And I don't want this out over here, and I want this out over here. Then suddenly we'll still start having requests. You have to make the systems idiot-proof, okay? So we have to customize a lot to make it idiot-proof. Now, one fine day, I told my business team also, I said, my system is so good, it is actually identifying the idiots. Can you do something about those idiots rather than changing the system to make it idiot-proof? It is far more better for the business to know, boss, I have got some idiots in the business not doing the right things. But what will be the coming to, boss, please customize it, please make it idiot-proof. Okay, we'll make it idiot-proof. Whenever we keep on doing things, we actually go into the frame of constraining things, and then say, oh, we can't achieve all this which the others are achieving. Yes, my friend, because you never customized. We did. We did what you wanted. Give us the freedom. We need the freedom from the business to actually achieve it, right? We can do wonders.
Yakin's got really touchy today.
Well, she asked me that what was my wish list from the business, right? So I just went all out.
No, very
Thank
well
you.
said. And after that live remark, I'd like to welcome Anil to this panel. Thank you so much for making it despite the weather. It was just really very nice of you to join us, and we appreciate that. So just to give you a summary, we have spoken about some of the key issues that retailers are facing. And we spoke about various items such as prioritizing IT at the time of developing strategy, rather than coming at it later as procurement of software or hardware, having systems that work together rather than attachments. In some cases, rather than applying band-aid on existing systems, you really may want to dismantle, like Yakin was saying, dismantle what's there to start something completely new. And in fact, I'd like to repeat, Yakin, your words, which is we are competing with people who are, retailers who are technology first and happen to be in retail, whereas brick and mortar retailers are just adopting technology. So I thought that was very well said. And we also looked at some of the learnings that we could have from other industries, for instance, the hotel industry. Piyush had a point of view about how the CEO, CMO, and CIO need to really work together in this case. So now we are at the point where we are asking all our panelists for their wish list. Given if there were no constraints, what are the technologies that you are currently deploying in your organization that you really think are transformative? Or once, had you no constraints, then you would have loved to deploy them over the next couple of years?
Yeah, thank you for the brief. If no constraints, yes, for sure. What we are right now doing is, that's a general trend. What we do is we always do in bits and pieces. There is never a thought of an end-to-end. If I'm repeating you, I'm sorry for that, but that's the more thought process which are going around.
It seems to be a universal.
Yes. So let's step one side back and see what we are doing right now. We all are working in silos. Everyone has their own agenda to fulfill. So maybe because it's KRA so-called and all of that put together. Though we say that this will lead to our vision of an organization and so on and so forth. Yes, I would reiterate your word which says that IT is never taken in the first round. It's the last person who has been consulted to, and that's the problem starts. And then they say that IT is a showstopper here. Yeah. Having said all of this, what if I have to do something and I would like to be implementing it? is work an end-to-end solution for any problem statement you have. First of all, if I try to figure out, do you really know what your problem statement is? Let's not run around the bushes and say, this is my problem statement, that is my problem statement, and start doing it. You have an organizational problem statement which says, this is what we need to achieve, and then we do an end-to-end work on it with no constraints on departments. It can be marketing has their own agenda to follow. No, it should not be that way. I would try to implement something which is a totally end-to-end solution.
Thank you for that point of view. So I think, I think it seems to be the universal state of mind here with all the CIOs that they are consulted last, and a lot of things are being done piecemeal. And, it'll be really nice to have someone who can bring it all together, or look at, let's say, a business outcome or a business problem first, and then drive the architecture, the overall architecture for that specific retailer or that specific format first before patching in those attachments, right? Sarvana, would you like to share your vision or your wish list?
The vision is, hello. Yeah. See, first we need to understand what is the company vision altogether and where are we focusing. With that, how are we going to get the IT part in line and the problem statements everywhere? Any company has a problem statements. Every company has a retail or manufacturing or be it whatever, hotel industries. That problem statement addressing, we need to get a right technology. That technology, which is the right technology based on the past learnings, and get a right fitment to the existing technology and fit it. Then getting a immediate layer and fitting in, and it's a troubleshooting concept, it should not be there. So it should be an end-to-end solution where we need to look into it. And this should be a case study where we go abroad, we learn a lot, we bring the best practices to India. So we get the technologies also. The technologies, even the implementation has to be in line with what we are. So the processes has to be laid well in advance, discussed. It should be in line with what our businesses need. So discuss with the various the partners of the technology partners and get the best technology partners on board, and then we need to get this right. Because there is a capability of each technology partners also. So doesn't mean that the right application or the right ERP will fit into a particular organization. So getting the partners also in line with this, which is very important.
Thank you. Completely agree that first of all, from concept to execution, and then who is executing it and how are they executing it, how will they provide support post implementation and so on. Definitely a very important criterion that is often overlooked. Shirish, do you want to share something?
Yeah, basically, I would like to say that we need to have a single system or customer interface across the channel. That is the first wish list which I will put in. And secondly is the involvement of an IT. I mean, Yakin has already mentioned that, or even Anil has mentioned recently, the involvement of IT right from the decision making. Normally, IT has been always asked to do the last thing. So store is ready, now you go and put the things. It doesn't work in that way. So as again, I will really give a good example of a restaurant industry. Normally in a restaurant, IT has been involved at a right time. So right from designing the networking, where is the billing counters are required, where the hotspots are required and all. So that has been decided much in advance during the project stage, which doesn't happen normally in a retail industry. So it's a last thing which, and second thing is that we need to really, operations team rather, we need to have a more cooperation from the operations team as such, because they take IT for granted. When yesterday me and Kunal, we were talking about, ये ब्रांड में होता है यार, मेरे यहाँ नहीं होता है, यहाँ पे होता है, मेरे अपने यहाँ नहीं होता है. So that mindset has to be changed, and then there has to have a timely upgrade in the system. I'll give my example of my company. Probably in online, we might have changed the platform 3 times in last 7 years. However, I'm still running on the same software, same hardware for last 12 years in brick and mortar. That doesn't work. But at the same time, technology has to be there. Yesterday, Microsoft people were saying that we need to give the experience in the store also. Yes, I want to give that experience, but at what cost? But definitely I cannot every store, I cannot have such a big video wall costing me 15, 20, 25 lakh rupees and give the customer experience. What is my ROI on that? So affordability is still not there. Whatever the solution are affordable by the startups, many of the startups vanish within a year or two. So really we don't know whether we will try them or not. So these are the pain point of not only retail industry, but I think every CIO across the industries. These are the pain points and we need to come out of this.
Thank you. Thanks for that point of view. Kunal, do you want to share your wish list?
Need a full day for that. No, but I think it's a pretty common expectation from most of us, in terms of working more closely with the business and understanding what's the business vision that you have for the organization, right? I mean, everyone's talking about 2020 and, this is what we want to do over the next 5 years, etc. But how much of that is being discussed with IT from the beginning for IT to also start taking those kind of calls in terms of their investments, right? And besides that, I think what also helps IT is, look, as a CIO, you don't know every technology that's happening around the world, So you start working more strategically with a lot of your partners from the beginning itself in terms of understanding what is their roadmap for certain technologies. And that also helps you decide your investments, the way forward, going back to the business and saying, look, if I'm doing an X technology or you want to do a certain thing, this is what your existing partners are doing. Can we look at those investments? Can we work with them to make things work for us in the future, right? And that helps in terms of agility, that helps in terms of making the right investments from the beginning itself so that you don't keep re-looking at what you've already done every 6 months, every 1 year, then there's a much longer perspective of looking at things. So that's the other thing which I like to put on the table besides that.
Thank you. And Abel, would you like to tell us what your technology wish list is?
I think enough is said in terms of how we are struggling, but ummeed hai, hum honge kamyab. And hope is there. And there's always an evolution. I think organizations will evolve, but yes. So on my top list is actually to deliver an IT platform rather than IT product. It means IT niche solutions. And the vision is actually to see if I can connect my supplier to the end salesperson or the customer. So a lot of times we are only focusing on customer side and we ignore the supplier side, because if I am not able to keep the supplier side happy, my margins are not going to accrue. The intake margin is what will make my profitability. So having that ability to connect that guy, build an extended enterprise which is collaborative in nature, where my supplier participates in terms of saying, okay, if this is your sales, I may have to go back and look at my production line and make sure that best selling SKU, you get some more quantity of it. That collaborative approach is what I'm looking at. And the other thing which is the second thing which is on my wish list is customer engagement. Shirish, you rightly said, we are not learning from the hotel industry. I have never seen customer engagement better in any other industry than the hotel industry. So that's another thing. How do I engage my customer? If he has an intent, if he has a wish list, how do I fulfill that wish list? Maybe I don't have a product. That's fine. But I have not lost the customer if I have the product. And that's the next one. The last one is more of how do I enable my sales guy, which is huge numbers, and at times it's 8,000, 12,000 employees. And how do I make that one sales guy sell from that 1 square feet of space one more additional shirt for the day? Because that's what drives his incentives. And if I can build that capability where he's a sales guy, but he talks like a fashion consultant to my customer, I think that power is what we need to unleash. And it's all available today. Mobile-based technology is available. You can connect him to the designer using your platform of IT. So if I can enable that sales guy to sell that one more additional piece every day, I think the sales target gets done, he gets his incentives, everybody's happy. So that's my last on the wish list.
Thank you so much.
Just add one
Yeah, sure,
point to
Kunal.
what Abel said is, we are all talking about customer engagement and connecting the customer. I think the larger piece really is the employee engagement and connecting the employees within an organization across all functions. I think if you start getting that right, the organizations will grow much more faster in a lot of ways. So I think that's much, much more important than just looking at the perspective of what do I do for the customer. It's very important to know what are you doing for your employees and getting all of that connected. If you get those dots right, I think the customer bit will just come up to a great extent.
Thank you, Kunal. So, wide variety of opinions. Hopefully, all of us will have something to take away. I'm going to quickly do a summary and ask for questions from the audience. So, what we take away from this last segment primarily is the fact that there is far more engagement required of the CIO with the CMOs and the CEOs, the category managers, people who run the business. My personal opinion on that is you are the change, be the change. So why don't you, start from today, from tomorrow when you get back to office, talk to your CEOs and CMOs and talk about how, you can work together, probably take them out for lunch.
Should be the other way around.
Somebody has to make a beginning. The other key aspect that I felt came out of this discussion was the need for a platform or an overarching architecture that suits the business model that you are in. Whether you're an inventory-led market space, whether you are a franchisee model, whether you have a combination of company-owned or franchisee stores, or whether you're just a supermarket or a hypermarket, purely engaged in the storefront with the customer. How are you going to have an overarching technology architecture that firmly stands behind your business model and supports it, rather than a band-aid approach or just keeping on adding? Some of the solutions that we came up with were, Kunal, like you mentioned, probably moving to the cloud, having modular, attachments or applications. There are a couple of pieces missing, which I want to talk about, which is in-store technology. I think, Abel, you touched upon it a little when you spoke about store associates having to upsell, cross-sell. The technology is available, but the adoption is not there. So, probably that's something for us to think about, how we can empower and enable store associates to do more, to sell more, to engage with the customer more, because, they are your moment of truth every single day, every single hour. And again, one of the other things that came up in this discussion today was, the availability of solutions, but not necessary that all of us will be aware of everything that's out there. And so to work with our suppliers, work with, our good suppliers, our technology suppliers, work with them as an ecosystem to really determine what's best for the enterprise. I hope I've got it right. I'm going to open up for questions. Any questions from the audience, please?
Yeah.
Come.
So more of a question. It's more than a question. It's a.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Rajul. Okay. It's more of a observation. So I've been building technology for last 8 years, for 5 years for Indiaretailing.com, 3 years for Myntra, and did a lot of innovations. And now taking the technology and I've started up again and building the technology for the offline world. Now, in last 1 year, when I've interacted with the offline world, especially large retailers and brands, my observation is, the DNA of the CEO, the CEO or the CMO has to change, or so they've started talking about technology, but they actually don't understand technology. Sorry to say, but they don't feel the technology, and technology is going to be a big difference between winner and loser in coming years. So that's one observation. Second, a very interesting one. Smaller and medium brand and retailer are ready to take the technology, are ready to absorb the technology much faster, ready to experiment much more than the larger brands. And now, since the technology is available on cloud, mobile, on SaaS platform, the large retailers and brands don't have the, let's say, the might of the money, to win. Now, a small player can also get the access to that technology and use it. And that's a general observation I have. I don't know whether you agree or not. But
yeah, sure, Piyush. Go ahead. You'll have to pull the mic closer.
Yeah, I want to respond to your first point because it's important we think both ways. So you mentioned that CMOs need to be more adaptive in taking CIOs closer. I have a second viewpoint also, and which says Hearing in this panel, when we talk of technology, we are drifting towards IT more. One. Two, we are talking data management, billing management, inventory management, every now and then. Okay? Somehow, because that's how it is started, the technology teams have a strong bias of focus towards that. Okay, let me throw some examples. I go to a restaurant and I'll become a user here. I want to become a customer here and pose some situations to you. I go to restaurant and I still have those hard copy menus. I want to understand what that dish is, can't make it out myself, ask the server, could you explain me what it means? Eventually, getting to a state where I rely on him and order the best that you have in the restaurant. It's about thinking business solutions. Think if it was a tablet or something like that, which was an electronic menu, where I could deep dive as to what exactly that dish is, have reviews seen there itself, and probably think on myself, which is interactive. Please understand, this is interactive. And this is what customers want today. So what I'm trying to bring to table is that it is not just CEOs and CMOs who have to change, it is also the CIOs which have to equally change. And it is going beyond the typical notion of data management as the technology. It is not the only thing that we have to do on this earth. I know it's a big piece. I know the best swanky planograms make a lot of sense because it drives sales. But at the same time, solutions have to be towards customer oriented. I really like that conversation where we were talking of hospitality. So all this put together, it's a transformation that we all need to do, and we are the change, as you rightly said. We have to bring that change.
Thank you, Piyush.
I'd just like to add on to that, again to add on to the second part of the query. So you said about the bigger players, the adaptability is far less than the smaller players, because it is affordable to the smaller players now. That's the reason. You have to think from the other point of view. We are sitting on machines and legacy systems where your impact of any new technology is huge. We have not even thought of that impact. Okay. I can go today and can say, let's go on a cloud. It's no big deal. But what is the impact on my current system, the ways of working? We have been working for ages on that particular process. So the whole change management which starts from the process owner of it to where we start implementing it, it obviously takes some time for the legacy systems to happen. That's the reason, one of the reasons why bigger players are taking some time to adapt to that. They will surely be there, but it will take some time for bigger.
Thank you, Anil. Yes, please. Kapil?
Kapil, I lead digital transformation for Cisco in the retail, consumer and e-commerce space in India and SAARC region. So I echo a lot of points that the panel has discussed, and we see this difference when we talk to traditional retailers and when we talk to e-commerce companies, the upstart and the challenges. And I believe even in the US, what we've seen is, I think it has to start top down, from the board to the CEO, whether you realize whether not just for today, but 5 years from now, am I looking at 5 years from now? Am I a technology-led company or am I a technology-enabled company? I think that realization will help the CEO, the board, to empower the CIO to not just keep the lights on, but also go full on, invest, experiment, fail, and build something valuable for the future 5 years from now. I think that empowerment and enablement of the CIO is very, very important. And business, right from the MD, the CEO level, needs to realize that. And I think from an Indian retail perspective, I think we've lagged a little bit in terms of our enterprise system readiness. And I think the last 1 year, 18 months, most of our retailer friends have invested in getting the enterprise systems to that level that they can now start focusing also on the customer experience side of it. I mean, think of it, if you don't have an MDM in place, where your data is lying in 10 different systems, how do you expect scan, pay and go experience in a store where the store price is different from an e-commerce price? And I mean, those systems need to be in place before you really start. And I think it's a more company initiative than just IT that needs to really. But I think empowerment of CIOs from top down is very, very important. That's what we are realizing in the West also and in India also. And the willingness to experiment, fail fast, but plan for an infrastructure which will take all these point experiments to a IT enterprise readiness. We see a lot of point experiments where you have a kiosk in the retail store with a Windows PC at behind, which has a cable which somebody trips over or somebody wipes and the table gets out. Those experiments, obviously the IT needs to be comfortable to say, I will take over this when it is deployed enterprise-wide. And we're doing some stuff there, working with some of these solutions to make them enterprise ready from a security, scalability perspective. But I think a lot of interesting points on the panel.
Thank you,
Thank
Kapil.
you. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, please.
Mike Asabi, I'm from IDC. It was an interesting conversation, and I heard that most of the discussion is around whether, how to upgrade from, the old platform to the new platform, how you should actually become more efficient, how to improve the customer experience. And that actually raised a question for me as a researcher, as an analyst, because what I write today is about the future. I write about how retailing is involved, across the world, how the retailing in US has completely changed. And that was because of, the drivers of the economy, what happened in the industry in the US. But here, we're still talking about whether retailers should move from second platform to third platform, or how they should improve some, the back-end best practices. I think from that angle, I see that still India, given the fact that it's a huge economy, you have the very potential market, it's growing in terms of the millennials, the income level, but somehow retailers are kind of still stuck in the past, still debating whether they should go from mainframe to the cloud, and instead of thinking how we can actually go ahead with some strategy that actually is 10 years ahead of the current situation. How we can bring augmented reality and virtual reality into our business. How we can improve our operation so that we can actually improve basically the lifestyle in the society. So I don't look at the retailing just, buying some product, stock it, sell it at the store or online. It's beyond that. You are kind of touching people or human life. And I'm not hearing that kind of conversation, how you can improve the lifestyle of an Indian citizen in this country. We see that there are challenges. Of course, the government is doing some initiative, the demonetization, which was a good, in my understanding, that was a good move to bring some transparency into the country. But at the same time, when you look at, the GST, that is already killing the retail. That is bringing a lot of pressure to the retailing side, because obviously the high GST rate, it's kind of slowing down the retail growth. So I don't hear anything that how the retailing is.
Let me.
Yeah, sure.
Let me take that. So as you rightly said, that there is a lot of discussions happening with the Indian retailers on how should we move from mainframes to cloud. All right. So there are a set of retailers who already started their journey. There are a few set of retailers who have not yet started the journey. So it's happening, definitely. The retailers who can afford it are moving and they are taking those steps. Then there are retailers who actually cannot afford it given the current returns that they are having into the business. So they are sticking with the technology for some more time, and that's about it. But yes, everyone will move. It's just a matter of time. And the longer that they will take, the difficult will it be for them to survive. That's a clear, writing on the wall. The longer they will take, there will be difficulties in terms of them surviving, nothing else. So, I'll give you an example. I was wrongly appreciated in my office for not doing anything for 10 years. Okay. But then there was the positive side of that was saying, good, you did not do anything, because if you would have selected some technology 3 years back, it would have been useless now. I said, appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure whether I should take it positively or in the negative sense. But yes, the move is ongoing. All the retailers who have taken a decision probably 3 years, 4 years back, they would be still saying, wrong decision. Okay, but you can never have the right decision. That's the part, and that's what I'm trying to say. You know, it is the fastest depreciated assets that we are having. You will have to keep on evolving much faster. You will require funding to be put into the budgets in that context, saying that we will have to keep on doing this so that we are relevant. Otherwise, we will be irrelevant. And this is the same point which we have been talking for the last 2 years. We can't run away from it. So I'm happy seeing many retailers who have already started this journey. They are moving on. Unhappy for a few who cannot afford to move on right now, given the size that they are sitting on. And that's about it. But we'll be there. Probably next year when you're here, we'll give you a little bit more positive, saying 80% already moved.
It's not kind of a speed that I see in other countries or other, other regions, because I think the fact is retailers here still have that kind of luxury, that they have a lot of customers and they don't really see, or they don't have a fire under the belly to really go and invest in technology. And that's a key factor.
Fully agree with you, sir.
Well, that's where you have your Ford struggling against the Tesla, right?
See, as of right now, as he rightly, it was pointed out saying that, the economy has slowed down. The first thing that happens to the business is all investments are slowed down. And every year, if you have some disruptions like this on the economy, for the good in the long term, yes, agreed. But short term, we all have to wait. And then we have to just live through it for some time. But we keep on doing things. So I can answer this new age ecosystem also, which comes from the startup technology, and we have adopted that. We have one store running without any legacy system. Okay, so it's there, but it's still in trial. We still have our own struggles and stuff like that. But then yes, we'll be there. Next year I will definitely meet you here, and then we'll have a different conversation. Thank you.
On that positive note, I want to thank all the panelists for making this a live wire panel. I hope there was something that everybody took away from the panelists to the audience. Thanks again. Thank you very much.